Wow, a very on-time crew. Very nice. Okay, but it is 1 minute past the hour and we run a tight ship here. So let's start, right?
Absolutely. Hi, Jarrett.
Okay.
It's wonderful. We have a nice big crowd here, Tebby, and let's because everybody wants to talk about what to do when the funding dries up.
Uh-huh. Welcome, everybody. I'm Debbie Goodman. I am CEO of Jackhammer Global. We're a global group of executive search and leadership coaching companies. We work with leaders and founders all over the world. I'm your co-host for today's session, which is entitled Driving Growth in EdTech Despite the Chaos. And I am joined by Rita, who it seems most of you know too. Rita is somebody I deeply respect in the education innovation space. And for those of you who don't know Rita, who it seems like there's no one, but I'm going to do a quick intro. So Rita is one of the most impactful strategists in the education entrepreneurship community in the US and globally. She is founder of ARC Capital Development, which is a private investment and advisory firm. They've supported, I think, 150 companies, probably more than that, literally all over the world. And to just give you a sense of scale, ARC clients and portfolio companies generate over $1 billion a year worldwide. Rita is also one of the best networked people I know in the EdTech sector. She has a finger on the pulse of what's happening in districts, in classrooms, in boardrooms with investors, which is why she's here today. Formal welcome to you, Rita.
I unmuted. I am delighted to be here, and this is such an important topic that I wanted to make sure, Debbie, that we make it a really robust and interactive and engaging session. So I encourage everybody to use the chat and let's get started.
Okay, so I'm going to just give another 2 cents over here. In addition to my work with Jackhammer, I coach founders and CEOs who are grappling with markets, with their boards, with their leadership teams. Basically, I just help people navigate through mess on a daily basis. I'm just back from ASU GSV, had many conversations with investors, with job seekers and startup founders. And so I've got some insights to share about some of the themes that are emerging. And what I wanted to do just to start off while we're talking through the agenda for the day is I'm going to quickly launch a poll. Hold on a sec. Let me just make sure that I do this correctly. So you should have gotten a poll. If you can just decide which one you are. I'm an EdTech optimist. I'm an EdTech pessimist. Or I'm a centrist. I'm the wait and see category. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to complete this. And I'm just going to quickly take you through the agenda, what we're going to cover today. We're just going to go through a bit of what Rita and I respectively are seeing on the ground. We're going to go into some tactical moves, what the hell to do right now. We're going to dig into some business development tactics and strategies, because the point about this is, in a time like this, you have to be doubling down on business development. Then we'll talk a bit about some policy shifts and how to handle those. A little bit on mindset, or as I like to call it, how to keep your shit together. By the way, this is a PG-rated session, so I do tend to curse from time to time. Sorry about that, but brace yourselves. And then we'll do Q&A, but as Rita said, just keep the questions coming, and we'll look at that over time and towards the end, and then we'll do Q&A at the end. Okay, so it seems like the polls are in. My goodness, we have no pessimists on this call, Rita. This is amazing. We've got about 55% optimist and 45% who are in the wait and see category. Very good.
Excellent. Debbie, I just want to take a second. Jane from your team just texted me saying that the participants should use the Q&A option and not the chat option. So we don't want anybody frustrated. They should be using Q&A.
Q&A, right. Okay, have we got all the housekeeping out the way? Yeah, okay, good. All right, so Rita, over to you. What are we seeing on the ground? from the
Well,
trenches.
well, it's changing every day.
Uh-huh.
And so, in this time of uncertainty, and I mean, let's just call it, right? It is uncertain. We have to have uh, proactive strategies in place and ready for handling the potential scenarios. And I've been doing a lot of work, and I'm actually going to do a masterclass series on managing in a downturn and building a strategy to a downturn. There's always opportunity, but it only comes with discipline and with planning. You need to skate where the puck is going,
Right.
not where the puck has been. And that's a big
Yes.
mistake I see people making, which is that they're just kind of locked into wait and see
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and doing what they've
Okay.
been doing
Right.
while the market is shifting, while the opportunity is changing.
Right. Well, let me add a bit to that. I'm actually just going to focus on 3 points, and they're the three sort of key narratives that came out of ASU that I wanted to talk about before we go into some of the tactical moves. The first is around the DEI narrative, which has been really muted in an incredibly short space of time. Some VC investors are no longer reporting on DEI to their LPs. For example, they would, up until recently, report on how much capital was going to female founders or to minority founders. And I've heard that some LPs no longer want this information on their reports. And so it is just quietly being dropped from the dashboard. And as we know, anything that is no longer, if you don't have to report on it, you no longer measure it. And what you no longer measure is no longer valued. And so this is just a very concerning trend that we have no way to know exactly how far it goes in terms of erosion. But for so many organizations, both profit and nonprofit, that have diversity, DEI baked into their business model, that is obviously very, very concerning about whether they stick to principle or whether they try and figure out survival. Then on AI, the general feedback was AI fatigue. A year ago, AI still felt like something novel. Now it's just a sea of sameness. And it's pretty difficult to differentiate unless you're already one of the dominant players. And so the feedback was, is this even part of the conversation? Because it's no longer a differentiator in most cases. And then lastly, my third point is that I spoke to a lot of people who are looking for jobs, who are job seekers, who are either starting to embark on their job search or have been in it for a few months and are frustrated because it's really hard to secure interviews right now. Very different market to where things were a short while ago. And for some people, and I'm doing a ton of job search coaching, even at C level and SVP level, which is the first time this has even been a need. And so that was sort of another key trend. I also heard a lot of nostalgia. Can you believe it, for the pandemic? It was like, who would have thought we'd reminisce about COVID being associated with hypergrowth and abundance of capital and a heyday for the industry. And now we've got unstable funding, shifting policy, big question marks about survival. So, but we're also seeing, in what you've indicated, Rita, is that, and what today is all about, is that there are growth opportunities, and founders who are adapting quickly and skating where the puck is will find it. So those were my 10 cents in terms of what I've been seeing on the ground. Shall we head over to you now and talk about the tactical moves, how to navigate around the ice rink?
Absolutely. So first of all, I want to acknowledge that what you just discussed is the current landscape, right?
Yeah.
And it's very important when building your strategy to understand and keep a pulse on the current landscape, especially because you have to be able to analyze risk. And so you've got to understand the macro shifts affecting education and the key challenges, which you just described, which was we are going to see funding cuts. We are going to see enrollment shifts. We are seeing AI as disruption in some ways. And so want to start with, I think everybody has to do a risk assessment on their business. And they have to be able to identify where their biggest risks are and where their biggest opportunities. So to find the opportunities, you have to analyze the risk in your organization. Second, you have to really do is you've got to have a disciplined financial resilience plan. You know, you just have to strengthen your cash flow and your liquidity. You have to have smart cost cutting, and if you're going to make investments, because, you know, in a downturn, you can do well making investments, what that looks like, you know, you may need to be managing your debt differently, and certainly accessing capital looks a lot different. So I think you need an assessment of your risk, then you need to really do an assessment on your health of your organization financially. And then you can look to the third piece, which is your diversification. You know, are you diversifying your revenue streams? Are you taking care of your customers to protect your base? Are you putting yourself in a position where you understand where, if there are funding cuts, what you're going to lose, what's at risk? And then I think we get to the part that this is certainly your area of expertise. There is no more important time for talent and leadership than in a downturn. And again, building on what you said, Debbie, I mean, leadership strategies, where you're looking at, should you be right sizing now or strategic hiring? Like, how do you balance your workforce changes? How do you train your leadership to lead, to be in alignment with this uncertainty? So I just think this whole leadership piece is really important.
Well, let me dig
It's
into
key.
that a bit. Yeah, because right now there's a very impressive talent in the market. For the very first time, a small company would be able to hire, not necessarily full-time, but certainly on a fractional basis, or part-time, or even hourly, or even just for a project. You would be able to access people with tons of experience, brilliant networks, people who could open doors for you, who would not have been available to do this because they were full-time employed somewhere else. And this is just the nature of the markets right now. There are some amazing, talented, top performing, door opening, product creating, revenue generating people out there that you could get. And I'm not talking about lowballing. I hate it when companies think, oh, it's a buyer's market, so let's lowball people in terms of salaries. Not that. I'm just saying fair work for fair comp, but not necessarily on a full-time basis. And you can accelerate projects, initiatives, door opening that you may not have been able to do when everybody was gainfully employed with all the bells and whistles. In addition, you could employ somebody for a shorter term without all the bells and whistles. And when I say bells and whistles, I mean the bonuses and the equity. People are much more flexible right now, because having a great gig that they can work with amazing leaders and a good team to build something is a good time for people who are in the market looking for a job to actually get their feet into something, even if it's part-time. So I just want to impress upon people who are going, well, I've got this thing that's been sitting on the side and I don't know how to activate it. There are good people that you could really leverage for that. I also want to go back to your other point. Sorry, Rita, you want to jump in there?
To survive a downturn, you have to have the best leadership possible, the best talent possible, because they have to coalesce in uncertainty. They've got to keep people motivated and moving forward in a time of uncertainty. And that's why this whole talent piece is so critical. Because
Yes.
I don't think really you can have a successful organization in troubling times without strong leadership. So right size your organization, bring the right people in.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, there's also a ton of offshoring happening. So there are so many different models. Even with my organization, I have about like 7 or 8 different kinds of service models, some full-time, some part-time, some fractional, some are independent consultants, some are in a different destination because it's a cheaper cost base, etc. And those models exist for all of us. And so I must say I'm seeing quite a lot of leveraging happening with US-based organizations. It seems like if companies can employ anybody outside of the country, they're doing that. But nevertheless, it's a time to be super creative with your workforce. I want to just quickly go back to financial resilience. What I also heard from so many people is they have got not just plan A or plan B in terms of scenario planning. They've got plan C and plan D. And so even the moment I started to see tariffs freaking out, and I also work in different geographies, so I have got currency risk. I started putting together with my CFO, my fractional CFO, plans around the what if this, what if that, what could I cut, what's absolutely non-negotiable. And we kind of need to be doing this almost on a weekly basis. So really digging into the numbers and seeing, I know that everybody's super lean right now. Being a startup founder, if you're there, that's kind of like the nature of how you operate in any case. But the scenario planning, I think when we're heading into this, we're in this uncertainty phase, having the A, B, C, D and beyond, it's exhausting, but it has to be done.
Absolutely. Especially if you have taken in money from investors who are expecting growth. You have to manage your growth expectations of your investors with the market realities, and how that whole financial resilience works is pretty critical.
Okay. Now we're going to talk about my favorite topic, which is business development, which I realize is not everybody else's favorite topic because it's hard.
It's mine, Debbie.
Okay, well, you and me. All right, so let's just talk about business development, which is really relationship building. And there is actually no finer time to build relationships than in a down market. I had a mentor just during the global financial crisis. It was, I had a 7-week-old baby. I had to go back to work because there was no business coming in. And my mentor said to me, you need to get back to work. And think of this as the hockey stick. We're in the downward side of the hockey stick. And this is the time to build, be available, be on calls, talk to people, add value, be by their side, because eventually it will start to rise again, and then you will be connected with a much broader network in a much more authentic and substantial way. And so this is not the time to be waiting for inbound. It's the time to be very proactive with outreach, campaigns, networking, and actually engage with existing and potential clients. You should be focusing and doubling down on your existing relationships. There should be absolutely no excuse for an existing client or relationship to be going to a competitor right now. You do not want that to happen. So even if you think, oh, they're not going to be buying right now, if you're not in their face, somebody else is in their face. So you need to be in there with your existing relationships. And the trick is to be consistent, to add value, and then also to not expect anything in the short term. And that is that for me, that is like the secret to all of this. Things potentially will not turn around in the short term. The sales cycle that we're used to is going to be different. And so if you're there just to authentically build relationships at this time, this is going to absolutely set you up for tremendous success in the future. I've got a few of my sort of principles that I abide by, but particularly in these downturns, and I've been through a few, so I've got the scars. For those of you who are not in the world of sales or business development, you may not have heard of the rule of 7, but it takes at least 7 quality touch points to convert a contact into a new client or partner. That's 7. And I'm not talking about bullshit automated email sequences, okay? Those do not count, all right? So I'm talking about 7 actual personalized interactions through a range of touch points that move you from a stranger to somebody who you trust, a trusted partner. And in order to do that, you need to be able to offer something of value at these various touch points. And those could be anything as simple as a great podcast or an incredible book or a great piece of content. This webinar, for example, we are offering this to people. It's hopefully going to be of value. And it's a touch point. We will then record it and send it out to our broader network. It's another touch point. So you can think about this creatively. It is hard work, but it's important to have that many engagements. And then to apply, so that's my first point. Number two is account-based marketing. Now, we think usually about account-based marketing in the context of big corporate accounts. My view is that any organization where there is more than one potential buyer should be treated as an account. And when we're engaging with an organization who we want to buy from us, even if it's a smaller company, there are usually buyers and then there are influencers. And you need to engage with all of them because these days buying decisions are usually collaborative. They don't just have, usually there's not just one person that presses the green light. And so you want to, the more people in that collaborative decision who know about you, your product, what you stand for, your brand, the greater likelihood that you're going to get a yes. So don't overlook key people like the chief of staff, like the executive assistant. They could all be somehow involved in an ultimate buying decision and could be a strategic influencer. Something that I have to remind myself, even though I do this kind of work day in and day out, ask the closing questions. So if you don't know what your closing questions are, you need to dig into that. And the closing questions are usually something that helps you go from a general chat to okay, what's next? And are usually things like, how can I help you? What would be next in this conversation? When should I be in touch with you again? Was this of value? And what would you like to see more of? I mean, there are tons of these. You can ask ChatGPT for a whole host of them, but ask the damn closing question. Do not get off a call, any call, without asking at least one. Number 4 is always offer value. Even if it's you asking for a networking call, asking for a favor. If you're a job seeker and you're asking for a favor, make sure that you have something of value to offer in that call, something to contribute to the conversation, or at least offer, how can I be of help to you? And then please, God, please, can you just send a thank you after that meeting? I can't tell you how many times I've shown up for a favor networking call with somebody who never sent even a thank you email. And am I just being old-fashioned and in order to be a little outraged at that? But, okay, not outraged, but just like a little pissed off that I offered my time and didn't get a thank you. Okay, sorry, that's my little vent for the moment. And then my last point on business development, and I'm going to hand back to you, Rita, is leverage LinkedIn. It is such an incredibly powerful, formidable tool. It's a topic all on its own. We're not going to go into the detail here. There are experts around who are far better equipped to give you pointers on LinkedIn. But if you're not engaging with LinkedIn as a business development tool now, learn how. There is so much opportunity to add value, to engage, to connect in a way that's completely authentic to you, in a way that shows your expertise and your thought leadership. You don't even need a budget. And it can get you meetings, it can open doors for you. So if you're not actively using LinkedIn as part of your business development strategy, please start today. Okay, I'm going to take a breather now.
So Debbie, if I gave a summary of what you just said, is there's in a downturn, that is when you double down on your sales, your marketing, and your business development. If for no other reason, if you look at the math, you have to protect your customer base, so you have to pay a lot of attention, and you have to accelerate your marketing because you need more leads in the pipe because the number of customers are going to go potentially going to be fewer. So you have to spend much more energy. And again, going back to the analogy of skating where the puck is going, You need entrepreneurial strategies that are not same old to be able to achieve that. And again, this is the time where creativity in your sales and marketing, relationship building really pays off.
Let me just add one more point, as you mentioned, just in terms of the number of leads that you might need in order to close a particular deal. I have been astounded by the fact that there are many founders, leaders, people who are not monitoring or recording their data around conversion. They don't know how many leads and conversations and meetings and possibilities or opportunities they need in order to convert one sale. And that is in a certain type of market climate. And what most people will have seen is that they need more in order to convert, but because they haven't been recording it, they have got no benchmark and no frame of reference, and they don't now know, well, how many calls, how many outreach do I need to send in order to get one meeting? How many meetings do I need to have in order to have a lead? How many leads do I need to have in order to have a proper possibility or pitch? How many pitches do I need to have in order to close that whole pipeline? And so if you haven't been recording it, there's no better time than now, but I can tell you that the ratios have changed. And so now is a brilliant time to be making sure that you are recording the data around all of those steps in the pipeline that get you from a blank piece of paper or whatever spreadsheet to a converted sale. What are all the steps and how much of that do you need? Because it is also a numbers game. And in down markets, the numbers change. And just get with the program. Because if you know what the new numbers need to be, then it just becomes part of your daily routine. You used to do 3, now you got to do 6. Oh, 6 isn't working. Well, now we got to do 10. So that's just to go back to that leads situation that you spoke about, Rita. And just, yeah, we need to do more. More with less.
Absolutely.
All right. Would you like to tell us about policy shifts and strategic pivots?
So I started the conversation with things are changing daily. We have a couple of ideas of where we think things are going. Clearly, Project 2025 is driving the policy agenda in education. So is the American First Policy Initiative, which is where McMahon, who is now the head of the education department, comes from, and their philosophies. We can look to that to build some scenarios. But I really think what everybody needs to be doing is assessing your risks. I think it's really important to understand your risk profile in your businesses, because what is the risk of doing nothing, right? What is the risk of taking small safety steps? What's the risk of being reactive versus proactive? I think because we don't know really where things are headed, you have to just be continually monitoring your landscape and the risks associated. Scenario planning.
Yeah. What about the repackaging of offerings? I mean, do you recommend that people start to do that?
I think you need to be nimble and you need to be able to go to where the market is. And I think that there, of course, you're going to need to be right sizing products and service offerings and pricing.
You were telling me a bit about a company that you'd interacted with. They were sort of a science-focused company that made a strategic shift, and in order to match new needs.
Correct. Well, it's no secret that this tariff roller coaster we're on, where this science company I was talking about gets most of its component parts from China. And when you get a 145% tariff increase or a 35% tariff increase, the risk to that business skyrockets. And so they had to be nimble about how to make their product offerings not dependent on the component parts that they've had.
And so they managed to do that?
I think they're working on it.
Okay, I'm going to start heading now into just a few words on mindset. But while I'm doing that, I'm wondering if there are also any people here who are in the job market. And if you are, and you have specific questions that you would like to ask, pop those in the Q&A. You can even do that anonymously if you want. But if you have specific questions about the job market, I'm going to be heading into that in about 5 or 7 minutes after I have spoken a bit more about mindset. And I'm going to start to talk about mindset with a little story of 2.5 weeks ago. I found myself doom scrolling at 4 a.m., which is when I usually wake up. I start my day super early, and feeling this overwhelming anxiety around that algorithm is vicious, absolutely vicious, and it was attacking my neurons. And I felt this physiological sense of anxiety that was just overpowering. And I knew I was about to head into meetings. I start meetings really early because I work Central Africa time. And in order to be available for the CEOs that I coach and for my teams that I lead, I needed to then do a whole like meditation thing so that I could just ground myself, having been in the battle with the algorithm. And so I decided then that it was actually not going to be healthy for my mental state right now to be on social media. And so I did the wonderful thing of just moving my Instagram and Facebook icons into a different screen. And I have not been on social media. I'm on LinkedIn for 2 weeks. And I have been justifying why I needed to be on social media by saying, oh, I need to be on top of the news. I can't be on calls with my business leaders if I don't know what's going on. And actually, that was nonsense. I am very well aware of exactly what's going on every single day because I read news. I get my news bulletins that are coming in, but I'm just not on social media. And so that was I'm not suggesting necessarily that everybody else does that, but if you are finding yourself with this overwhelming feeling of panic and overwhelm, it is one thing that you could do right now that would help you. Then it's really important to surround yourself with people who are not in a pessimistic, depressive state. So fortunately, we're on a call, it seems, with people who are feeling relatively either okay, wait and see, to optimistic. And even if you're faking it till you make it, that is fine. As long as you are in communities and rooms and conversations with people who are creative, optimistic problem solvers, you're going to be okay. Yes.
Sorry about that. No,
go ahead.
So I just I want to bring that back to what we were talking about, the talent and leadership. What you're describing is why you need the right leaders in your organization now. It's exactly why, because those leaders can drive resilience in addition to the strategy.
Yeah. My job is to lead and motivate and point in a direction even when I'm uncertain. And I need to have a calm mental state in order to be able to do that with any level of authenticity. And so part of what I do is cultivate mental, emotional environment for myself so that I can do that well. And I'll give you a couple of other things that I focus on and I double down on in these times of anxiety. I adopt my daily practices. I'm a bit of a lapsed meditator. So from time to time, I don't do it at all, but I do find that that this is an important time to even do 5 minutes of just breathing, or I mean, you can get a guided meditation anywhere, and it's super helpful to do that. I journal. So those are my two sort of meditation practices. And then walking, just being outdoors, walking in nature. It's spring in the Northern Hemisphere, so that is, a good thing to do for your mental health. And then the basics, we forget about the basics: nutrition, hydration, exercise, sleep. Sleep is really important. And then real social interaction. We need to hug a human. So if you're working remotely, make sure you are getting outside to do a walk in nature and find a human to connect with from time to time. It is really, really important, particularly right now. You cannot pour from an empty cup. If you are a founder, your job is to keep your company not just alive, there's a possibility to really thrive. But if you are flat, you cannot do that. And so part of your job is to lead, and you can only lead well when you are feeling okay. So that is my little pep talk on mindset, and it's mostly what I do. I'm not a guru on any of this stuff, but I know that I go through these tremendous ups and downs when things are like, with, in markets like these. I've been through it before. I know that we'll come out. I know that it's going to be fine. I've also had tremendous business success during these crappy times, and it's about keeping your mind together is really, really key. Do you want to add anything there, Rita?
I'm ready to go for a walk.
Okay, we'll just hold your horses. We've got a few more minutes here. Okay, so we've got a couple of Q&A, and I'm going to ask you this one. What should leaders not be doing right now?
I think you can't be stuck in the past, and you can't have your feet, stuck in the mud. I think that's probably one of the things that will get you into the most trouble. Because if you do that, there's a very good chance somebody else is going to be running your agenda, driving your agenda.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's also what leaders should not be doing is they should not be thinking that the grass is greener on the other side, whilst at the same time looking at diversifying revenue streams. So they've got to be doing two things. The one is the scenario planning around, if one area may be drying up or dead, then what could the other options be? At the same time, you're most likely to get business from your existing relationships, your existing clients, your existing network. This is a time when organizations take as little risk as possible when it comes to buying. And so you're most likely to get new business and new sales from existing relationships. And so leaders should not be shelving something entirely and stay or going, okay, it's all about the new. So it's maintaining a balance between scenario planning and looking at diversified revenue streams, but also really doubling down on existing relationships and existing networks, because those are people where you've already cultivated, you've already done the hard yards of building trust. And so now it's just around doubling down on that and waiting for the right time to do the sale. There's been a question.
We've got some questions. Yeah, we've got questions coming in, so let's.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I'm taking questions from the Q&A. Are there any coming in? Are you looking at the chat or the Q&A?
Q&A.
Okay, great. All right. So we've got a question just around what is the best way to introduce your availability on a fractional basis? Network. So part of Jackhammer is we actually have a fractional division. And what we have seen is that many of our clients, particularly in the EdTech sector, particularly now, are choosing to work with their network when it comes to fractional hires. So fractional hires are most likely to be made through your personal professional networks. And so, this is that is the short answer is introduce it through networking. Rita, could you provide a hypothesis for the companies that continually post positions without responding or filling them? Are they just conducting market research? This is companies that seem to be advertising for jobs on a continual basis, but it seems like they never fill them. Are you seeing this at all in your network?
I have, and I do know an organization that is guilty of this, and there is actually a strategic reason for it. In uncertain times when things are shifting and changing, what they're looking for in building their organization has been changing more often. And so there is a component to this time of uncertainty, which is really about this whole making sure you're optimizing your talent and bringing the right kind of talent in, and talent that's coming in at at different price points, where your search may have you may be able to get two people for the price of what you would have paid for one, or something like that. So I think that we're just in a time of change. So if you're looking for a job, you just have to be able to be flexible and be more creative than maybe you have been in the past with what you're offering to companies.
So just in terms of this, so to add to that, to the question around why do companies seem to keep posting the same ad over and over? Are they not filling the job? Why are they not interviewing me? First of all, companies could just be populating their database for the future. So it could be a tactic to do that. Or they're not finding the right people, or they're just lazy and not taking the job down. So
that was much more succinct than my answer.
It could be all of those things. It is annoying and very frustrating. And just to get back to add to that, we do see, unfortunately, that candidates end up feeling very downtrodden. They end up feeling very disheartened because they're applying for jobs that they seem to be absolutely perfect for, and not even getting any kind of feedback, not even a response, never mind the first interview. And so people end up feeling like really poorly about a company or companies that they have been applying to. And my partner and I, Rita Ferrandino, and I are actually going to be doing a podcast on candidate experience. So anybody here, look out for that. We'll be launching a podcast in a couple of weeks on that, because we really feel that for companies that are advertising for jobs and vacancies, this is an opportunity either to really enhance your brand or to erode it with these applicants who are really in the market, and I wouldn't say all are desperate, but are really out there, putting themselves out there, and to not get any feedback whatsoever is not cool. For candidates, I want to say, don't take things personally. This is not necessarily about you or how your CV looks or anything about you. This is a state of the market right now, and you've got to just put your iron vest on and just keep trucking. This is not a time to be, yes, if you keep interviewing and you're getting declined, definitely look at your interview tactics and techniques and your preparation and all that kind of thing. I'm not saying think that there's nothing to learn, but there are so many candidates in the market right now. We see job ads going up, and there are like 2,843 applicants in 24 hours, and the job will come down because it's just overwhelming. So for job seekers right now, it's a tough time, and you just can't take it personally. You just have to be consistent with sending out applications, and mostly with networking. I'm going to take a breather there and go to another question, which is, for a CEO role, how do you differentiate yourself in a final interview round? So particularly in the context of the current EdTech market, where there's so many changes happening in policy and funding and DEI, etc. And now you coming in for a CEO, to take on a CEO role, and the expectation from the board or the advisory committee that is interviewing you is that you will have some answers. So the question is, how would you differentiate Rita, what would you recommend?
Oh, for me, I would definitely talk about how your leadership strategy and style will be to align the leadership teams around your resilient strategy and motivate the organization to move forward in uncertainty. And that includes all the key stakeholders, including your board and your investors.
Okay, that was the short answer. Man, when you get to that final round, it's really hard to know, why do boards make a decision one way or the other? And I have to be honest, so many times it's around things that are less about your skill and your capability and the perfect answers. And sometimes it really is about how people feel about you. Unfortunately, that is the brutal truth. And so once again, prepare, have a couple of scenarios, have your ducks in a row, be authentic, try to point something in a direction. But when it gets to the final rounds, it's often a roll of the dice, unfortunately. We have a question around a recommendation regarding companies that have a DEI focus. And Rita, this may be a sensitive one to answer. Do you recommend a rebrand? Do you recommend that companies have a DEI focus rebrand and figure out how to navigate through that for the next 4 years? Should companies like completely take stuff off their website? Should they remove all language and vocabulary that hints at diversity? What do you think?
I think those are difficult conversations to have with your leadership team and your boards and your investors, because I think it is an important decision to the health of the business. I've seen companies very successfully maintain what it is that they're offering by using different language and softening some of the language to make it more in compliance. But the fact of the matter is this current administration, which is in charge, is very clear that they do not want to see DEI language, and there will possibly be penalties for non-compliance. How is that for a soft answer? Rita's doing a softball.
You're being tactful. You're softballing on that. Yeah, that's such a hard one, man. I mean, I spoke to a couple of people at ASU, GSV, and they were just like, there's our principles and our values and what we stand for, and it just feels like such a values compromise for so many people. And so I don't think there's any straight answer or advice that you can get from the outside. I think this is very much an internal question, and sometimes, and there was actually another question from one of our audience members who said, is this potentially a reputational risk for the future? So do you think there's a reputational risk pivoting away or towards? So you stand for something, and now out of concern, fear, potential, revenue issues, you pivot away or towards, and where does it stand you in the future? Does everybody just go, okay, we understand why you did that, don't worry, we'll forgive you, we'll still buy from you? Or do you think there's a risk there?
I think, again, my theme, it sounds like, for today's podcast is understanding the risk. So understanding the risk of doing it and not doing it, and being able to live within that range of the risk. There are going to be consequences for organizations that choose to continue to defy what the Department of Education is mandating. Where do you fit on that risk tolerance?
Right.
There are some people who really don't have much I'm sitting in Boston today, and I've got meetings at Harvard, and so this is kind of fresh on the on my mind,
Okay.
right?
Okay. But they may have the deep pockets in order to be able to exercise their strategy. I imagine they've done a ton of risk analysis on what that is, and they've got the budgets. So perhaps they've made a call on how they choose to walk this line.
Correct. Whatever they decided to do, they did with disciplined analysis,
Right.
for sure.
Okay. Well, on the point of revenue and pricing, we have a question, which I think is a really important question. We look at this all the time around at what point do you start offering pricing incentives or reduce your product offering price where you undercut in order to do a deal? Because I know from experience, once you've done that, you can never go back up again. So it's kind of like a decision that you make for the future. But what are your thoughts on budgets are uncertain, let's rather do the deal than holding out for a good deal.
You got to skate to where the puck is going, not where it has been. What has happened in the past is the past.
Aha.
We are in a new market. Get over it. Lose that mindset, right? Where the market is today is reality. And what you have to do to price your product and to sell your product and run your business is based on today's reality of the market.
Okay, so is that your answer for saying do what you need to do in order to do the damn deal?
I think you need to do the deal.
Okay.
Now you have to do that within the fiscal responsibility of your business and your business model, right? But yeah, but you cannot be stuck in what happened in the past and what you charged in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I mean, I think that if the entire business landscape has changed and if your competitors are able to offer things at a lower price, you're just not going to be able to compete. So decide. And then figure out how to address your cost base in relation to a new pricing structure.
Absolutely.
Okay. Interesting comment here, less of a question, just that a smart company can change its language, but still do meaningful work that has been part of its mission. And I think I really like that. I really like that as a comment, because it's not an either or. You can still stick with your principles and you can figure out how to address language that is currently considered to be offensive by certain constituencies, and everybody will still know what you mean, but you can make sure that you don't fall foul of particular regulatory changes. So it's important, and it's important to bring your teams along with that, because there will be certain people in your organization who aren't necessarily as aware of the commercial imperatives of making these changes and are not as close to looking at the existential threat that some companies find themselves in right now. And so really important to bring your people with you as you shift towards any changes regarding pricing, regarding the language you're using to talk about your meaning and purpose, regarding your hiring or firing. This is a time to collaborate with your people, to collaborate with your network, to really put yourself out there. If you're not a natural business development, relationship building person, sorry, you're going to have to get with the program. And it can be really fun if you can do it in an authentic way. You're welcome to email me, or we're in the closing phases now, Rita, just saying you're welcome to email me or Rita, or connect with us on LinkedIn if you've got specific questions. Before we close out, Rita, some final comments from you?
Just flagging that we are going to be offering master classes where we actually build strategies with company leaders on this downturn playbook. So watch for that. And again, now's the time to double down on your sales, your marketing, and take advantage of the downturn. It's an opportunity if you make it one.
Yes, I'm going to just add to that. I think the lasting sort of message that I really want to give to anybody who is either looking for a job or running a company or part of an organization and feeling that sense of it seems like there's nobody here who's necessarily got the dread, but certainly the concern. But more importantly, wanting to think about, how do I leverage this time? Imagine getting through this period with the best relationships and potential clients and network who you've been in their face during this time. You've added value. You were there as a partner. You didn't just throw your hands up in despair and start whining and moaning. You come out of this period fortified with relationships that are going to see you through the next phase, which is hopefully an up phase. You have got a really well mixed team of people in your organization where you're optimizing talent in a way that you never have before, because you were able to be a little bit like, yeah, we can have a couple of B players on full-time salary. You can't do that anymore. So now you have an optimal team of some A++. Maybe they're not there full time, but they can really activate your strategy. Your marketing, you've had to really dig into that. Your finance strategy, you know exactly what your costs are. Maybe you have to reduce some pricing. Maybe you've got a couple of different models. But the point is that this is hard work. It can be exhausting. But if you really do it on all fronts, you get through this and you are set for you really are set for tremendous growth and then have capitalized on opportunities that are happening now. So that's really the message that I want to give is, I've done this before, and yeah, it's not entirely pleasant to be groveling on our belly through the tunnel trying to find the little bit of light. But hey, we'll get out a little muddy and bruised, but we'll get out. And so yeah, that's it. My message to everybody here.
And everybody, we hope you all take the time to go for a walk or whatever it is that makes you resilient.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We will be recording this and sending this to you so you can send it onto your network. It has been a great pleasure to have this opportunity to share this with you. Thank you so much, Rita, for joining me today.
Oh, Debbie, it was a pleasure. And it was wonderful to be able to brainstorm and inspire people in this challenging, uncertain time.
Thank you, everybody. Go forth into your day. Be amazing. Bye now.